So look, everybody in this industry wants more hot leads. Your marketing guys want to generate them, your sales guys want to close them, right? And as an ownership, as somebody who owns the company, you guys want to know why your reps aren't converting these kind of brand new hot leads. But at least in my experience, here is the problem that no one that I've spoken to at least seems to understand. Having more hot leads, bringing in more of them, isn't going to fix your broken call center. In fact, it's just going to make things worse and expose what's going on. Because if your rep can't convert cold or warm leads, throwing them into those kind of high intent, high cost inbound leads isn't going to solve the problem. It's just going to make things more expensive and magnify everything, right? Because at least, again, from the teams that I've looked at, what they miss is that there's a fundamental skill gap between a rep who can convert an opportunity and then the reps who just chase or can only close those layup leads, right? So if a rep needs a perfect lead, meaning that they're ready to buy, the spouse is on board, all of the stars have aligned, then, that type of lead isn't going to be closed by somebody that's an actual inbound rep, right? It's just someone who is what I would refer to as, an order taker, right? And in reality, the best call centers aren't built on perfect leads because they just simply can't be, right? In reality, they're going to be built on systems that consistently move leads forward no matter how hot, cold, or in between those leads are. So, at least in my opinion, here is what trained reps are going to be doing with each of their leads, right? They're going to make sure that they control the energy of the call from the start, right? A great rep doesn't start calls off in a reactive way. They're going to actually lead that conversation, which means that they're going to set the tone. In some cases, they're going to match that customer's energy, and they're going to stay calm under pressure because the energy that they portray is going to be contagious. And if the rep doesn't sound like they're know what they're doing and they're just kind of checking boxes, then the prospect's going to feel it and it's going to ruin the call. The second thing that good reps do, in my opinion, is they don't just ask questions. They ask sequence questions, right? So there needs to be some logic behind what they're asking. One answer is going to unlock the next. And, for example, if a lead says, hey, they're just looking, then the next question might be, okay, got it. Is there something that you want to be done before the holidays? Or, is this more of like a long-term plan, right? That kind of a sequence to answering the questions is going to provide clarity for you guys as a business. But it does so, if done properly, in a way that's not going to trigger buying resistance. The third thing that good reps do is that they're going to uncover real objections early before they actually set the appointment. So one of the biggest revenue leaks in our industry is that appointments are run that should have never have been run in the first place. And great reps, they surface those key problems like budgets, spouse, timelines, things of that nature, but they do it in a way where they don't scare the lead. And, this is something that takes real skill to be able to do properly. And then fourth, and in my opinion, the most important, great reps know how to create urgency. So even when a lead says, hey, we're not thinking about doing anything right now, they know how to turn that passive interest into somebody who's actively hot by asking smart questions that kind of connect their project to real pain points, whether that's energy, whether, it's seasonal timing, or 100 different reasons as to why a prospect needs to move forward with these, this project right now. But all of these are learned skills. They're not just something that comes naturally, right? And we've consistently found that difference between, calls that end with maybe later or, I'm not interested versus the ones that booked is actually having those skills. And when the reps that we work with are actually trained in this, then intent level of, the lead doesn't become a variable that we need to account for or depend on, because regardless of how interested they are, they have the skills to be able to book the ones that can be booked. And that's why we say that this obsession with, hey, only give me hot leads is a very backwards ideology, because hot leads don't make reps better. They just make the flaws more obvious, right? If you guys took a second and took a step back and actually thought about this process, a high intent lead, right? Someone who's an inbound from a Google or a lead aggregator that's actually hot is going to expect certain things. They're going to expect speed, clarity. They want reps to be professional. And if your rep is fumbling through the intro message of the call or kind of sounds like they're unsure, then that lead's going to be gone, because they can just book with the next company that's going to call them inevitably because they're a hot inbound lead. And remember, these hot inbound leads, they cost more and they're more competitive, right? So if the reps haven't learned how to actually, work with colder leads that haven't got, high interest, they're very resistant, they need to be able to stay calm under pressure, then trust me, they are not going to be ready to, book that high value inbound lead that gives them a little bit of resistance, right? And those are the leads that you guys want to win the most. So the difference between a good and a great call center. So that's why we train and manage our reps who can handle all levels of lead intent, from aged rehash leads to cold outbound leads, all the way through to that kind of high quality inbound that needs to be booked fast and professionally, right? And our focus isn't on just building scripts. We focus on actually building full systems. That means teaching tone control, understanding proper cadences, practicing objection handling, mastering the art of, curiosity-based questioning so that our reps can be confident no matter who is on the other end of the line, right? Because if your reps can only perform with those hot leads, then your call center isn't going to be something that's not going to provide a bottleneck for your business, right? And if you want to fix that, if you want to make sure that, you guys can keep sending leads through marketing and seeing that ROI, then make sure to reach out to me, because that's exactly what we do. And look, even if you decide not to move forward with us and you want to go a different path, then the one thing to remember from this video is that 9 times out of 10, at least from what I've seen in my experience, lead quality isn't the problem. A lot of people like to blame lead quality, like to say that marketing's not doing a good job, but I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. It's actually the quality of your reps that is the problem. So whether you guys want to hire somebody to come in or you want to, actually train them, make sure you focus on that, because until your reps are able to actually, close both cold and hot leads, you're not going to be able to scale the way you want to. And again, feel free to follow the page. I'm going to be dropping videos like this every single week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.